Welcome back to AI Historic Expeditions. In today's episode, we embark on a particularly special and difficult endeavor as we set out to recreate the image of Catherine Howard, the fifth wife of King Henry VIII, a task that is deemed impossible. Now, you might be wondering, why is it considered impossible? We are faced with an impossible task because there are no authenticated contemporary likenesses of Catherine, and there is no documented evidence that she ever had her portrait painted. In fact, it's believed that any existing images of her may have been destroyed or ignored after her execution. Now, how do we proceed? Although we face a daunting task and the absence of a confirmed portrait, we will embrace our detective role and build a case around a specific portrait that we deem to be the most plausible option. But first, let us thoroughly evaluate the existing evidence that is at our disposal. Let's start with the portrait miniatures by the renowned artist Hans Holbein the Younger. In these miniatures, Catherine is portrayed wearing a pendant jewel that is similar to the ones seen in Holbein's portraits of other queens, such as Jane Seymour and Catherine Parr. This has led some to speculate that the necklace and pendant may have been given to Catherine by Henry VIII on their marriage in 1540. Art historian Franny Moyle, in her book The King's Painter, The Life and Times of Hans Holbein, suggests that the miniature might be a likeness of Anne of Cleves, Henry VIII's fourth wife, whom he married in the same year. She points out similarities between the Royal Collection miniature and Holbein's 1539 portrait of Anne. Moving on to other portraits, there is a drawing traditionally identified as Catherine Howard by Holbein, but this attribution appears to lack foundation. Another portrait, known as the Portrait of a Lady in Black, also by Holbein, was initially identified as Catherine Howard in 1909. However, it has since been associated with members of the Cromwell family, particularly Elizabeth Seymour, Jane Seymour's sister. Renowned historian David Starkey, in his 2004 biography of the Queens of Henry VIII, provides a description of Catherine. He describes her as having auburn hair, pale skin, dark eyes and brows, with the beginnings of a double chin. In the Chronicle of Henry VIII, written by the unknown Spanish author few years after the events, Catherine is referred as being the most beautiful woman in the kingdom, while the French ambassador initially described her as being a young woman of extraordinary or great beauty. Another courtier suggested that she was very beautiful. Now, let's turn our attention to a portrait known as Portrait of a Young Woman. Although it has never been formally identified as Catherine Howard, many scholars believe it likely depicts the Queen. Susan E. James, a recognized authority on Catherine Howard, suggests that the portrait belongs to the period between 1540 and 1542, and might have been painted within the English court. This portrait bears a striking resemblance to the Queen, increasing the likelihood of its authenticity, particularly when compared to a sketch created by Holbein. The portrayal captures the Queen with auburn or brown-blonde hair, a fair complexion, captivating blue-gray eyes, expressive lips, and a delicate physique. These features align with the contemporaneous descriptions of her as slender and even diminutive. The other portraits portray a larger, taller woman who seems to be older than Queen Catherine. Another argument in favor of the Portrait of a Young Woman is that for a teenager to be painted during that time, she would have had to be of high rank. Ladies of waiting were typically not painted unless they held noble status or were married to high-status courtiers. Armed with these intriguing pieces of information and guided by the power of artificial intelligence, we will utilize the Portrait of a Young Woman as the base for our AI recreation of Catherine Howard. Let's begin with the first recreation. What do you think? What about number 2? Followed by version 3? Are we getting closer? Here comes version 4. Followed by version 5. Which one is your favorite so far? And finally, version 6. Have you made up your mind yet? Vote for your favorite AI recreation of Catherine Howard by posting a message in the comments section. Stay tuned for the final episode tomorrow, where we recreate the image of the last wife of Henry VIII, Catherine Parr.